Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Marketplace webinar series. Today, we have the opportunity to learn how EasySend's innovative solution can increase user engagement and provide a holistic process for digital applications. The integration between SureComp and EasySend allows our customers to replace outdated technology and bring new digital processes with integration to our back office system. With the technology, SureComp's customers can create by themselves new customer-centric processes for creating guarantees and even onboard new customers, different use cases that you will see shortly. I have the pleasure today to host Omer Shirazi. Omer is the CEO and co-founder at EasySend that developed an advanced digital process solution that focuses on customer engagement and user experience. Omer is an experienced salesperson with a vast knowledge of client-focused solutions and leads EasySend's customer success in 4 continents. Before we start, let's explain what digital engagement is and how banks do that today. So, Omer, perhaps you can share with us the engagement challenges that banks face nowadays and their impacts on the industry.
Sure. Thank you very much for the warm introduction as well, Asaf. I'm really happy to be here. So, great things. I think that there is multiple challenges nowadays, but the first thing that I will point out is that you always need to manage customer expectations. I think that overall in the whole industry, the customer expectations are now changing. And unlike 10 or 20 years ago, today customers are always expecting to have an Amazon experience, click everything doing by click. Doesn't matter if it's an onboarding process or a service or a support issue. They're all wanting a robust digital A to Z experience. I think that 10 or 20 years ago, it was a little bit different, where customers were expecting that where they are acting as consumer at home, they're receiving robust tools and digitalization tools, and we're acting as customers and in the workplace as B2B. They understood the regulation issues, and they understood that the technologies are a little bit more obsolete. But today, everybody is looking for the most beautiful digital designs and want to do it as fast as possible. So I think this is one challenge. The second thing, and I think this is a little bit more related to how you build a digital process, is time to market. So as you know, and as you all know, digitalization is an upcoming battle, meaning that it takes more than a few projects to finalize a full digitalization project. And in order to become a full digitalized company, you need to have it as part of your DNA, something that you can always need to put effort on it. And you can just need to understand that from now you need to invest time in it and development efforts in it for every quarter, every year. And this is something that a lot of companies forget. And this is why they are starting digitalization projects, and they think this is a one-time effort, and this is why overall it's failing. So I think this is something that is a huge challenge these days as well. And you can't really have a conversation today without talking about COVID. So I think on the B2B it has a huge impact, right? If last year or any other year for that matter, you can always compensate on lack of technology, on a warm handshake and sitting through around coffee and finalizing documents for small business loan applications or any other application you can think of. Today it's not possible, and today we're working from home. Most of the executives doesn't even have a printer, doesn't even have a fax machine or something. So how would they do those things? So you must this add another layer of pressure to those organizations to digitalize, and it's a huge challenge because you need to do it now fast. And if you didn't start, as we talked about, the time to market is crucial. Another thing that I would add, and I'm sure, Asaf, that you will agree with me because we are part of it, Generation X and Z are now starting to be something in the market, right? We're starting to be decision makers. We're part of it, and we were born with those technologies in our hands. And I myself need from time to time to fill manual forms and do things that are not in the digitalization scopes. And for me, it's odd, right? We are not used to it. And this is something that even pushes the industry forward as well. And this is another challenge because this population, us, I don't really want to do anything that is outside of that digitalization scope.
By the way, thank you, Omer, for that. By the way, if you have any questions I didn't mention, you can use the Q&A panel and we will address them at the end of the session. And it's very interesting what you said about the digitization process that the banks are having or wishing to have, because we know we work with the banks, we understand their needs, and all of them are looking for the digital process, the digital journey that will bring them into this era of more digital processes, more efficient way to operate transactions. And they all have great challenges in adopting those technologies that related to things that you have said before, and also for the culture of the organization that is not intended. And overall, we will see that, maybe we'll discuss about that later. They're looking, all of them, to see the return on the investment as soon as possible. In addition to what you said, also the Generation Z, eventually, not only that they have become the decision maker, they are also not, when they face a process that is not digitized or is not customer centric, they are wishing to replace their service provider. And this is affecting eventually in the customer, in their banks, if we're talking on the B2B business. So maybe we can move to the next question. What banks can do to tackle these challenges that you have mentioned?
So overall, I think that they are doing great jobs, right? You can see all over the world, regulation is changing, and probably you have your own bank app, and everywhere that you see some sort of changing in digitalization. So overall, I think that they are doing a great job, and they need to keep doing what they do. But from my experience, a lot of banks are doing taking it internally, and they want they want to do a lot of things with their own development teams. And this is sometimes has an issue because sometimes you lack the know-how, right? The capacity of the development teams in the bank is already low. And McKinsey and other big researchers actually did a great research about it. And McKinsey itself said that 80% or 4 out of 5 digital transformation processes fail a little bit because the know-how. If you know how to do it, it will not be. It will be a successful project, and it will start and end in the same way that you design or thought it will be. But if you lack the technologies and lack of the know-how, then usually it will end up in some sort of failure or extension. But today I'm honestly, and this is from my effort in my team, I see that a lot of banks and organizations are opening their gates to third party like us. And I think this is always a good thing. I think that when you open your gates to listen to other technologies there is out there, you will end up with one of two things, and both of them are good. The first one is education. Every company worldwide that are doing the selling processes will eventually have a lot of information that they will share with you, especially when we are talking about banks like enterprise customers. And part of the education will be about technologies, about understanding how we look at the problem that you have, understanding how we solve this problem, understanding which kind of tools we're bringing to the table, understanding the costs and the ROI calculation that we're doing, understanding our business model. And I think overall, even if you're not signing up with any third party, understanding those things can give you as a bank a lot of ideas, and actually can share a lot of light on what you should do in your own projects. And the second thing is, surprisingly, a lot of those encounters sometimes come to a successful project. You fall in love with a vendor, you say, hey, this is a great vendor, the price is right, why wouldn't we should move forward? And then you actually, most of the time, those projects will be very successful, and you have a win-win scenario when you just having another development arm, and you're hitting a successful project without too much effort. The only tip that I can share about meeting other vendors is when you're meeting a new vendor, just study the topics before that, so you can understand everything about their technologies, and usually that will give you a lot of benefits.
I truly believe that when a bank decides to take a third party to develop something, to use it, or to do in-house development, it not only faces the fact that they need to invest a lot of money here, but when they use it in-house, they usually think that the integration to different systems that they have will be much more fluent, and the ROI will come much faster. Maybe you can relate to that afterwards when we talk about EasySend solution. But if we're understood a bit about the challenges of the banks, can you share with us what are the alternatives for them?
Sure. So I think overall the bank need to decide whether they're tackling those issues as we discussed internally, or whether they are taking some sort of third party. I think the alternative are pretty simple. So first of all, the bank need to tell themselves and make some sort of strategic decision and say, okay, those kind of projects we're only doing internally, something that related to maybe to core business or something that they have the know-how to do internally. And other project that should mark as this is something that I can talk to sort of third parties. So they already know which kind of project that they can use outsourcing. And then once they get to the understanding that startup companies like us are investing millions of dollars and thousands of development hours on developing the best products that or the best of breed products that we can put on the table, and not for some sort of a generic solution, right? We are calling ourselves fintech from the same reason. We are trying to solve a specific problem that you guys have, right? We are developing specifically for the bank, specifically for the insurance company. So once you understand that there is solutions out there that are specifically suited to your needs, then you can start think about your alternatives. And I think that with the right tools and with the right stakeholders in the bank, you can actually meet more than a few vendors. It can be platforms like we provide, and then you can take the platform and use it internally, or it can be some sort of a third-party development of any kind of technology, and you can actually get a really good fit out of it. So I think that the alternative is out there, and you can actually scope those technologies. I think that I would say is that because there is so many technologies that you can use in digitalization, you can expect your internal development team to do that, right? If you're buying 10 or 12 new technologies a year, behind each of them there is thousands of development hours invested, and you can't expect your internal development team to do it all. And I think this is actually a great alternative for a lot of things.
Interesting. So if we try to get a bit deep dive into that, because we're talking about digital process, but we don't really explain how it's different from what the banks do today. Maybe you can share with us what is the value that those alternatives bring to banks, and how they see that value, and how this digital process is existed.
Sure. So I can say a little bit about what we are doing, right? Best thing that I know is what EasySend is doing. So, for example, our vision as a company is to make sure that financial institutes or businesses in the financial world will be successful in the digitalization or digital transformation. But overall, we put to ourselves as a mission to make those transformation not only fast and not only economical, but much more easier. So we are talking about, instead of building digital processes in months, we're talking about doing it in weeks. And I think this is or days. And I think this is a great alternative. And the value is immediate, meaning we're taking any kind of manual form that you're bringing in, and we're converting it into a digital process in a matter of days, and you can start utilizing it. On top of that, we're bringing in some sort of platform, so you can train your team to use the platform, and then you don't have to rely on third parties, right? You can do it yourself. The training is very, very quick, and overall, you can use this kind of platform to convert any kind of manual form that you have in the organization to a digital process. On top of that, I guess that you will need to figure out what kind of value do you want to receive from your digitalization process. So we always need to talk about ROI. When you invest some sort of cost in a third party, you always want to receive at least 5 to 7 times more the ROI. So if you're investing $100,000, you want to receive at least 5 to 7 times this ROI. And I think this is a great tip. So before you're starting a new project, you need to understand the influence that it will have on the organization and to make sure that you know the value that will come out of it. And honestly, I think it's all in the use case, right? You want to digitalize a process, you want to digitalize a manual form, and you need to figure out what is the right process or what is the right use case to start with. And this has a huge impact on the organization.
It's very interesting. I must say that I have used your platform, the EasySend platform, as a user of submitting digital forms and also as a creator of forms. And without even onboarding to the platform, I managed to create a digital process out of my own by uploading a PDF, and it just created this. Well, it wasn't the best of breed of digital processes, but it looked very good and worked properly with all the integration, the APIs. So it was very amazing to see it and how the implementation became so easy to perform. And also submitting the forms, it was much better user experience for me than using PDFs or even electronic PDFs, which are a step better than the PDFs, but still are not the experience that our generation is looking for. And by the way, you just mentioned about the use case and how banks can move ROI to those use cases and which projects processes they can invest in order to get to 5 to 7 times ROI. Maybe you can share with us, I believe that it's something that concerns many of our audience today, which processes they should tackle, because you have so many digital processes in the bank. It can be related to the trade finance department, like guarantees, letter of credits, and issuing those transactions, or even onboarding new customer. But it can be related to all the different departments in the bank. So give us some insights how decision maker in the bank should make the things clear for his team to decide which form or which process should be digitized, at least at the beginning, to see the ROI first.
Great question. So this is something that we are practicing a lot with our customer, and I think that we really do have a lot of good recommendations here. So first thing that I would say is when you're starting a digitalization process, you need to think about two kinds of processes, two kinds of use cases. And this is something that we found. Of course, there is tons of use cases out there, but we always can put them in two groups. So EasySend is usually talking about use cases that are customer related and customer centric. And then you can talk about operational use cases. Those are most usually simpler use cases. This is like most common updating sort of details, or when you're getting married, you want to update your material status, or you need to get some sort of a specific action done in your account. And this is more of a use cases that have a lot of transactions, but they are not influencing the revenue the specific revenue point. So we're talking about use cases that are usually after the customer already onboarded, and you have usually huge amount of transaction on those ones. And the bottom line here will be operation-wise. You have 10,000 transactions in a month with this process. Each process takes 7 minutes to operate. It has an hourly cost. And if you digitalize it, you don't have to type those processes anymore to your internal systems, and everything will be much smoother. So this is one part, and this is usually a much simpler use cases, and to digitalize them, by the way, usually will take much less time. So this is one. The second one is what we call touching the bottom line, touching the money. So this would be a little bit more complicated usually. Here we can put in those kind of use cases, for example, mortgages, small business loans, any kind of onboarding process. And this is usually something that will have a huge impact on the organization because let's say that today, as a bank, you're meeting with 100 small businesses to receive loans, right? So from those 100 customers, it takes 45 days for you to give them a loan, and only 40% of them are now are really taking the loan eventually because they are going to other banks or something like that. So if you digitalize this process, suddenly your conversion can be, instead of 40%, 80%. And this is something that we are doing because you're shrinking the time that it takes to take a loan in your bank from 40 days to 3 days. And this is something that is always to put out there. So this is the second one. So you have the operation ones and you have the ones that are touching the money, the ones that are more related to the revenue score. And I think when you're starting in onboarding a new digitalization project, you can pick few from each. You need to think about processes that are crucial for the business, but in the same time, not the most complex. And you can pick 1, 2, 3, 4 processes and start with them. We usually call in EasySend, the onboarding process is usually 5 processes and it takes usually a month, for example. So you put a month's effort from your team, but you're receiving 5 processes in advance. So I think this is the best tip that I can say.
Very interesting, and I hope most of our audience took some lessons from that and maybe will change their thinking about the processes and how we engage with customers. But maybe last question before we will let the audience ask from their thoughts and their questions. I know that EasySend has a unique capability in creating digital processes that we have spoken before. Maybe you can share with us how EasySend brings value to this field?
So overall, I think that we are technology driven, right? We're trying to do something that never done before. Our dream is to have, we're working on a machine learning algorithm that you can actually upload any kind of PDF to it and on the press of a button convert it to an HTML5 digital solution. And we hope to manage with that we can scan your website and see how many PDFs you have in your website and just convert them on the press of a button to a digital process. It's taking time, right? This is the real influence that we have on the field. Today, we already have this algorithm. It's working on smaller processes, by the way. You can see it working. It's actually taking 80% of the job to create a digital process, and then you can tweak it with our drag and drop tools. So I think this is the one thing that we're really influencing the field where we are trying to push the technology to the limit when we're talking about it. And I think the second thing that we are doing that is a little bit different and we're really trying to influence is our analytical overviews. So instead of building one digital process and saying, hey, just use it and we hope it will be good and well, we are trying a new analytical overview where we're catching the amount of seconds and the time periods that it will take any customer to fill out any field. And then we are trying, again, with machine learning to understand what is the bottleneck of each process and telling you, hey, in page 3, you have 12% dropouts, maybe change the third field validation. And this is something that's starting as well, but we can see already a lot of influence on the conversion there. So best thing that we did was a mortgage application, for example, and we were able in 3 months to upgrade the conversion with three different versions, and each time we upgrade the conversion in another 5%. So it was very, very cool. So I think this is the two things that we are taking a little bit out of the box and trying to influence this kind of behavior around the full market, and hopefully we will make it.
Every time I hear another feature from you, I'm just amazed about how your technology is keep advancing and developing and bringing such great value to your customers. So before we will end this session, you can raise your hands. I will allow you to open your mics or send questions through the Q&A panel. So this is your moment in the next few seconds. Otherwise, I'll let Omer to summarize. Okay, so Omer, feel free to summarize.
Thank you, Asaf, for having me here today. I love the cooperation with you, and I really think that we had a lot of fun today. Overall, we would love to take in any kind of offline question, emails, and explain a little bit more about what we believe can be the best digitalization way on any kind of challenge or use case. And I would love to come back and do another webinar with you. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you, Omer, for joining us today and sharing with us your insights. For those of you that want to hear more and those who want to share their feedback, please fill the survey at the end of the session and contact your account manager if you'd like to hear more. Thank you all for joining us. See you in our next session in March. Bye-bye, everybody.
Asaf, thank you very much.